Hey, Grio fam, it's Gerren Gaynor, managing editor of politics and Washington correspondent at theGrio. And I am here with Democratic nominee for Senate in Wisconsin, Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. Welcome to theGrio. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hey, it is my pleasure. I want to thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. So first, you are vying to unseat Senator Ron Johnson on November 8th. You are also a part of a historic number of 16 candidates on the ballot, Black candidates on the ballot this year who are running for statewide office. First, tell me, what do you make of this moment in politics, the fact that there are Black candidates who are at the top of the ticket for governor, for Senate? What does that mean to you? What do you think that says about this moment right now?
Well, what it says is people are stepping up with real world lived experience all across the country. I was born and raised in Milwaukee, and as I get to travel the state of Wisconsin, I get to talk about the issues that matter and as they relate to my hometown, Milwaukee, my specific neighborhoods, the schools I went to, neighborhoods I lived in and grew up in, and how our struggles are the exact same. For far too long, we got out of touch politicians like the guy I'm running against who subscribe to the politics of division, and everybody gets left behind when we have politicians who pit communities against one another. So I get to travel all across the state, which was one of the most amazing things about the role that I'm in currently as lieutenant governor. And I get to share the Wisconsin or the Milwaukee story. I get to share my experience with people who may have not otherwise had it or heard it. People who may see something in the news or hear what some bad faith politician tried to sell them about what life is like. But the work we've been able to do is build bridges across this entire state. I'm incredibly proud to be a part of this.
And obviously, if you are successful in November, you would make history as the first Black senator from the state of Wisconsin. What would that mean to you to make Black history in that way?
Well, it's not too much different than my race for lieutenant governor. Was elected as the second Black elected person in statewide office in Wisconsin. And like I said in my swearing in ceremony in 2019, making history is fine, but making a difference is the most important thing. And personally, it's less about what it means to me and what it means for the next generation of people, especially those who went to the same schools that I went to, those who live in the same neighborhoods that I went to, don't feel like opportunity is always within reach and feels like the problems and challenges they are experiencing are out of their control. And that's why I've spent so much time in schools, letting people, especially young people, know that they can make a difference and they can go out and chase their dreams. And they just need somebody that'll be there to help support them in their efforts. And I'm happy to be able to do that, if nothing else, to be able to provide an example of what they can go after and how they're one day going to lead this country and be in charge of the world. And I want them to be able to have that implanted in their minds at a very young age.
Yeah, representation really does matter. Speaking of history, another history maker, a former senator and former president, Barack Obama, is going to Wisconsin to stump for your campaign. How does that make you feel, and what are you looking forward to?
Well, look, 2004 is when I heard Barack Obama's DNC speech, and that's when I was, first. That's when I first got inspired by him. That's what prompted me to get engaged. I felt encouraged when I heard his words because they were words that I hadn't necessarily heard before, and the way that he made his story so relatable to people all across the country, and how he led with his story being a uniquely American story. It was inspiring, and that's what led me to become an organizer. I wouldn't be on this path if I didn't hear that speech in 2004. So to have him in my hometown at a moment like this means the world. Like I'm really excited to be a part of this visit with him.
And the Senate is known as the chamber that is more deliberative and wise, but there's been a lot of frustration with the U.S. Senate in recent years. What do you hope to bring to the Senate that's different?
And the Senate is broken. I'll be real honest with you. The Senate is a place that doesn't share the experience that a majority of people in this country experience. They don't live life, and that's the problem. It's the reason why we see legislation get stalled as soon as it hits the U.S. Senate, because most of our U.S. senators aren't impacted by these issues. Most of the senators are so detached from the real world as a majority of people live it. Now, with that being said, we need more working class voices. We need people who understand the struggles and challenges, but also the hopes and dreams. And I do firmly believe in our greatest challenges, we do have our best opportunities. And quite frankly, it's been a club for the elite. It has been a multimillionaires club that should be broken up. A majority of people in this country are not multimillionaires. And if we don't have voices of the people sitting at the table where these decisions are being made, where the quote unquote most deliberative body in the world is doing their work, then we'll never meet the needs of people who continue to be left behind in our society.
And you have framed your campaign as one for the working class, and how personal it is to you as the son of union workers. How do you think that shapes the way you look at how the economy and workforce should work in the United States?
Well, I know how things can be. And whether it's my parents or my grandparents, my granddad moved to Milwaukee after World War II, got a job as a union steelworker in a factory right here in the city of Milwaukee. And things were different then. He had a good job in a safe city, but when those factories closed their doors, moved the operations out of state or overseas, is when we saw a rise in crime and violence and further deterioration. And it feels like nobody's been there to truly pick up the pieces since that's happened. And I know the difference having, or being the proud product of Milwaukee Public Schools. And unfortunately, a lot of things I had in my life were a luxury compared to so many people I was around. I never had to worry about, what I was going to eat when I got home. I never had to worry about if the family's going to have to pick up and move somewhere. Didn't have to worry about some of those other issues that people around me had to worry about. And because of it, my outcome was a little bit different. And I got involved in public service because I believe that every child growing up in every zip code deserves at least the same opportunities that I had.
And Republicans, like Democrats, also say that they are the party for the working class. With more voters expressing discontentment with the economy and inflation, why should voters continue to believe in the democratic policies, and that Democrats can bring them out of what we're seeing right now with the economy?
Excuse me if I laughed a little bit, but Republicans are just lying to folks. They're gaslighting you. They're gaslighting working people. The Republican Party, people like Ron Johnson, the guy that I'm running against, the Republicans in Congress have only served the wealthy, have only served, the special interests, oil and gas industries, pharmaceutical industry, insurance industries, while leaving working people behind every step of the way. Ron Johnson, who I'm running against, his biggest achievement was the 2017 tax plan that he was initially a no vote on, until he orchestrated $215 million in tax deductions for two of his biggest donors in 1 year. And that was paid for on the backs of working families. At the same time, Ron Johnson said he's against raising the minimum wage. He's against expansion of healthcare. He's against family leave when people's family members get sick. You got to take care of somebody. If you get sick, not having to show up to work, spreading your illness to everybody else. He is against everything that will help make quality of life for working people better. He's against Social Security, he is threatening Social Security and Medicare. He's coming after people's retirement. When Oshkosh Defense got the contract to build the next generation postal vehicles right in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, they unfortunately made the decision to move those jobs to South Carolina. And Ron Johnson said, we have enough jobs here in Wisconsin. I can tell you how little time Ron Johnson has spent in communities that have faced significant challenges, communities that have been that see significant disinvestment. Because if he'd been in these communities, if he spent time in these neighborhoods, he would know better than to say something like, we have enough jobs. And this campaign has been about rebuilding the middle class, the same middle class that gave me an opportunity to get ahead.
There's a point, you had a debate with Senator Johnson. Congratulations for a successful debate. There was a point where you were asked to say something admirable about each other, and Senator Johnson followed up with his compliment of you with a dig.
Lieutenant Governor Barnes had loving parents, a school teacher, father worked third shift, so he had good upbringing. I guess what puzzles me about that is, with that upbringing, why is he turned against America? I mean, why does he find the founding of America awful? It's
somehow
it puzzles me.
Did not.
What did you make of that moment?
That's who he always has been, right? He can't run from who he is, right? And that's fine, right? I can take it. I decided to get in this race I can take that, right? What I'm more frustrated, upset about is the fact that he continues to turn his back on people like me, on families like mine, on cities like the one I live in, and the entire state of Wisconsin. You know, he can insult me, but the biggest insult is him turning his back on the people of Wisconsin, regardless of where they are, turning his back on our small family farmers, our small business owners, and working families. That's what's the most insulting. I could take his little dig. That's fine. He had a rough night in that debate, but people in Wisconsin are having a rough time because of his lack of leadership and representation.
And final message for those who might be still considering who they want to vote for. Why should they vote for Mandela Barnes?
Well, I'm running because better is possible. And I believe we can give everybody in this state, in this country, a fair shot at the American dream, but it takes people who actually share our experiences and people who share our values, people who know what we're going through, people who want better for somebody other than themselves. Ron Johnson has spent 12 years in the US Senate. He only doubled his wealth, but is hell-bent on making everybody else's life worse. When I say he only doubled his wealth, I mean that's one of the only things that he's done is make himself more wealthy and enrich the special interests that have kept him in office. Things can be better, but only if we have the people in office who are dedicated and committed to making things better for everybody. Ron Johnson has proven he's not up to the task, and I spent the last 4 years as Lieutenant Governor doing the work that he refuses to do.
Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for your time and good luck.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.